Welcome to Coffee and Conversation with Bell Healthcare Marketing. Today we're going to be talking about what a practice should be thinking about as they look to bring their staff back to work and reopen their practice. I am really excited to introduce today's guest who really doesn't need much of an introduction, Jay Shore. Jay is the founding partner of Shore Solutions, an award-winning medical consulting firm that assists practices improve their operational, administrative, and financial performance. He's a well-known author and speaker in the aesthetic healthcare space and is an adjunct instructor at Florida Atlantic, where he teaches medical business management. Jay, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for having us. It's great to be here to try to share as much information I can during these certainly uncertain times.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's obviously been a very difficult time for our industry with the mandated closures and practices, really having to lay off and furlough a lot of their staff members. So I'm excited to hear your perspective on really what practice owners should be thinking about as they navigate some of these critical staffing decisions as they plan and prepare to reopen. Really, before we get into that, can you give us an update on the SBA loan PPP program that was rolled out, kind of where we are with that today?
Sure. Let me try and first define what the PPP program was, because there are so many people that get confused of what was the SBA, what was the EIDL, what was the PPP. Everybody has these acronyms. But what I want to share, what's most important, is about what monies go towards people and staff, because that's really what we want to speak about today. And the Payback Protection Program, commonly known as the PPP, initially authorized $349 billion in forgivable loans to small businesses to pay their employees during this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. And all the loans were supposed to be the same for everyone, equal for all. Now, I'm not going to want to get into the politics about any of this during the course of our conversation. But as we all know, there's been some conjecture that the small mom and pop business did not get what they felt they would rightfully deserved. The program opened up, and some of the larger businesses that were even under the 500, which was the limit, applied. And the banks ended up offering their preferred borrowers the monies before some of the even smaller mom and pops even had a chance to apply. All right. So the loan amounts that are going to be forgiven are the loan proceeds that are used to cover payroll costs and most mortgage interest, rent, utility costs over the 8-week period after the loan is made. And that's a very important thing to understand. It's over that 8-week period after the loan is made. So it's not as if you're going to get a bonus, keep the money in your bank account, and then think that you're going to use it when you need it, because it's got to be used right away. And there's a reason for that, because the amount that you're given is that loan was calculated over a payroll amount of monies on a monthly period of time with a multiple of 2.5, meaning that if I had $100,000 worth of payroll for the year, you divided it by 12 and then multiplied it by 2.5. And that's the amount of monies that were going to be given to you. So now the payroll costs were capped at $100,000 on an annualized basis for individual employees that were given. And due to likely high subscriptions, it's anticipated that not more than 25% of the forgiven amount can be used for non-payroll costs. What does that mean? It means that you can use it for rent and utilities, but not more than 25% if you want that to be forgiven. So where did you apply? Initially, people were going to apply to the SBA online, but then the SBA gave it over to the banks, whether it was the major banks or the local lenders. And then, of course, there was a kerfuffle with that too, because sites crashed. And I think you and I have spoken before, and I've shared that I got in on the first day to apply. And out of the 50-some thousand accounts or whatever that applied that weekend, I was number 4,397. I got approved pending funding. Now, I'm a small mom and pop business, all right? So what this is for monies to help staffing and to help bring people back and or pay people that are preventing them from going on furlough and or a layoff. And that was the purpose, because the federal government said for every dollar that they give you under this payroll protection program, they were also saving a dollar in unemployment. Now, we know that there are record amounts of unemployment applications that have been filed. Many haven't even been funded yet. So this program is hopefully meant to pay people. And what are you supposed to use the loan for? Payroll costs, including benefits. If you have your FICA and your Medicare and you have an IRA or 401 or healthcare, that was all bundled into, plus their pay, for the government to give you that money. And supposedly, and I'll see it, I'll believe it when I see it, if you use all of that money, what its intended use was for payroll, that monies can be forgiven. You have to apply for forgiveness. Otherwise, it's going to be a 1% loan, which will be payable over quite a long period of time. So does it cover sick leave? Covers sick leave. Now, the money you owe when your loan is due is if you use it for anything other than payroll, mortgage, interest, rent, and utilities over the 8 weeks after getting it, not more than 25%, as I said, is going to be able to be forgiven. So you can also use the money if you do not maintain your staff and your payroll. This is very important, what I want to say now. If your number of your staff, your loan forgiveness is going to be reduced if you decrease your full-time employee head count, because it asked you how many people did you have on your payroll, all right? And if you decrease that, you're going to have to pay back a little bit more of the money, the level of your payroll. Your loan forgiveness is also going to be reduced if you decrease salaries and wages by more than 25% for any employee that made less than $100,000 annualized in 2019. So people think, you know what? I'm going to reduce Chuck's salary and I'm going to keep that money for something else. But if you do that, you're going to have to pay back a little bit more of the money. Now, let's talk about rehiring, because this is where we're really going to try and focus the balance of our conversation. You have until June 30th of 2020 to restore your full-time employment and your salary levels for any changes made between February 15th and April 26th. Remember that. You have until June 30th to restore your full-time employment. And what's the interest rate? It's going to end up being 1%. Now, all this money was gone. The $349 billion was gone. So, you know, the name Steve Mnuchin and the president, and like I said, I'm not getting into the politics. They went back, and Senator Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, and I only bring these names because they're the high bigwigs of the Congress and the Senate, and they went back and they said, look, guys, we need more money. And we need more money to give to these people. So they approved over the weekend, and on Monday, the Senate approved $310 billion. And the House of Representatives is supposed to vote on that to be approved, and then we go to round two. What have I been told? I've been told that monies are going to be earmarked for those applications in the queue that were not SBA approved. The rumor on the street, that money's gone. Not illegally gone, but so many people who didn't get in on the first round now are going to be earmarked. And the poor practice, medical practice, small business, mom and pop, restaurant, nail salon, whatever other businesses you are, aren't going to have the money. So if you have to pay it back, when is it due? You've got 2 years. If you pay it back early, there's no prepayment. And do you need to personally guarantee the loan? No, there's no collateral required. You don't have to certify. You just have to do it as part of your application. And the loan forgiveness is going to be provided for the sum of the documented payroll costs. And you're going to have to document these payroll costs to the lender who gave you that money. So if you can't prove by your payroll, now when I applied, they asked me, what's your payroll and can you back it up? Sure, I could back it up. How do you back it up? If you have a payroll administrator, I use one of the big payroll companies. I'm not going to name it, but I use one of the big payroll companies. And in there, they have payroll liability and payroll summaries. And it shows what my payroll was, what my healthcare expenses were, what my taxes that I had to pay as an employer, matching FICA, whether it was state tax, IRA, or healthcare benefits, and then that was my total employer payroll costs. Now, how do you marry that to ensure that there's no fraud? I also had to submit what they call my 941s and my 940. And that is what your payroll company sends to the federal government to show what your federal unemployment taxes were, and also what you paid for Social Security and Medicare wages. And that has to marry and match your total payroll costs from your payroll. So there was no way that I was going to be able to fraud, not that I would, because my 940, 941s exactly matched the same amount of money as my summary from my payroll company. And that's what you're going to have to be able to prove. You're going to have to acknowledge to the lender that the eligible loan sums and the tax documents that you submitted are true and correct. And if you don't, I'm assuring you that next year we're going to hear from the attorneys general of the different states about a lot of loans and fraud. The banks are going to be coming after people who didn't use the money properly. Like anything else, you know, while we're asleep at night, Chuck, there's always a schemer trying to think of a way to scam the system.
Yeah, that's a shame, and you know, hopefully Congress can get the rest of this bill and funding approved, and whether it's gone or not, at least get it out to some additional folks that need it. Okay, so let me ask you this. Understanding where we are with the PPP program, if I'm a practice owner, what staff or employees should I be planning and working to bring back to the practice as we're preparing to reopen, and what kind of time frame should I be thinking about that in?
Well, remember, we have the time frame to use this money. So if you have laid off your people and you've furloughed your people and you don't bring people back or pay them, then you're going to have to pay this money back. All right? So there's no free lunch in town. So now let's talk about what's the best time. The best time is right now. If you've been funded, start using the money to pay your people, because you're going to need these people that when you get back. As a medical practice, you should be calling each one of your patients now anyway, just to touch base with them. Because if you don't, the other doctors who also shared the same patient base with you will be. And you should be just keeping abreast with them, saying, hey, you know, Chuck, I care about you. How are you? Do you have any questions that I can answer for you? Would you like to do a telemedicine check? Is there anything that I can do? Bring your patients or your staff back. Be doing marketing, to doing social media, to be upgrading your website. Don't let your website fall apart just because you're not in business to see patients, Because remember, what you did a month, 2, 3 months ago is what affects your business on your website today. And if you do nothing today and tomorrow, 3 months from now, that's the result that you're going to get from the lack of work and effort that you did today. So, it's a double-edged sword. I don't have any business, and people have said to me, Jay, I don't know if I can afford you. My answer is I don't think you can afford not to. Because when we get back into business, everything that we haven't done, and Chuck, it's funny because people say to me, oh, I'd love to be able to get this marketing done while we're seeing patients and everything. I just don't have the time. Yet, how are you going to tell me right now I don't have the time? You have all the time. And guess what else you have? You've got free money. Now, it's not free money, but it's free money because you're getting this money from the federal government to bring people back to work and use it. It is not to line your coffers and pay your laser bill. Now, this has nothing to do against banks and laser companies and the loan finance companies and the leasing companies. But the payroll protection program wasn't meant for laser bank payment protection. This was meant for payroll. And I understand that the banks who lent you this money in good faith deserve to get paid. And your landlord deserves to get paid. But without your staff, you don't have a business. So when it comes back, you're going to have to be able to bring these people back, clean your office, desanitize your office, make sure that you've got PPP, make sure that you're not going to sell from an empty shelf, make sure you've got good skincare inventory to sell. Because what's going to happen is those people that aren't doing that and using their staff effectively to monitor that, you're going to run out of product when you reopen. You're going to run out of supplies. And there's the old adage, in a supermarket, you can't sell from an empty shelf. So make sure that you're able to take care of that now. So who do you bring back, you asked? What's essential and non-essential? To me, every staff member is essential. When I've been paid anywhere between $50,000 and I have practices that have been given $500,000, what are you waiting for? What are you using it for? Bring your people back, write your policies, your procedures, your protocols, update your website copy, add things that you hadn't done before. Go back through your before and afters. Add them. Get testimonials. Add them. Get a hold of your website and social media company. Ask them how they can help you to help yourself. This is the best time to do it because once you start back again, and it's going to be soon, and I don't want to get into the politics, like I said, but the state of Georgia, the governor says one thing. And then we have Las Vegas. The mayor, I saw an interview with Anderson Cooper last night. The mayor says one thing. I don't have an opinion on this. The governor says another. The governor rules, all right? Whether it is the governor of Atlanta, the governor of Nevada, or the governor of New York. I live in Florida. They're opening up beaches here. Now, I'm going to give an opinion, and it's non-political. When is it safe? It's safe to open your business when it's safe to do so, where it doesn't affect the safety, the health, and the security, not only of yourselves, but those around you. And that is non-political. Don't listen to politicians. Listen to Dr. Fauci. Listen to Dr. Birx. Listen to the Center for Disease Control. Listen to the National Institute of Health. Listen to people who have some experience and are medical and scientific. And let the politics play out however it may play out. but I'm a science type of person. I want everybody to flourish, Chuck. I really do. I want us all to get back to work, but only when it's safe to do so.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think we ought to let science and data really lead us to when we should be reopening. So Jay, you gave some really good points there about not only when we need to bring staff back now, because we need to use the money, we've got the funding. I think that's really solid advice. You also outlined some things that practices can really use their staff for to prepare for when they're going to open, whether it's next week, 2 weeks from now, or 3 weeks from now, really depending on where you are. I guess I'm curious, are there any other recommendations you would give to practice owners about what they should be thinking about as they're preparing to reopen their practice outside of what you've already mentioned?
Have a plan. When you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And I know, come on, Jay, that's an old adage. Yeah, I know. I teach, whether I teach at the university or I teach at all the major conferences, and I use these adages, all right? When you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. I didn't invent these words, all right? I learned everything I know from somebody else for the most part, except falling on my butt and picking myself up and scraping my knees off and trying not to make the same mistake again, like we all do. However, the best word of advice I can give you is seek advice from others, from other practices. Don't consider anybody your competitor right now. You need to think of them and collaborate versus compete. I cannot tell you how many website vendors I've called, how many social media companies I've called, how many practice management consultants I've called, my competitors, my allies, my friends, my foe. But you know what, right now, I'm not too proud to ask, what are you doing? How are you planning to do this? Because I have people that are begging me for help and begging me for advice, and I want to give them the best possible advice I can. But you've got to go into this with a plan. Plan for today, because when are you going to be able to open up? I don't know. People ask me this all the time. I don't know. Where do you live? If you live in Florida, you can go to the beach last week. If you live in Texas, you're going to be able to start operating for essential, non-essential starting Friday, I heard. Next Monday. In Georgia is one thing. Texas is another. So you have to have a plan so that when the final plug is put into the wall and you're able to do it, that you don't go in with a wish, a hope, and a prayer. Have a plan. Because the one thing I'm going to assure you, you're going to revise the plan over and over again. Because I had my business plan for the third quarter done in the first quarter. Well, guess what? The third quarter is July, August, and September, and that's about 8 weeks away. Guess what? I better forget that plan, because as I'm analyzing the plans for my colleagues and analyzing for the clients that I have, every plan I've helped them with is thrown out the window because it's not the same plan anymore, because things are different. We had plenty of money back then. We've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we have $10 and $12 million practices, and we have $1 million practices. You know, the $10 and $12 million practice is $1 million a month. When you think about that, you've been closed 2.5 months now. It's going to be February, March, April, going into May. How many millions of dollars of gross revenue have you lost? Now, that's not profit. That's gross revenue. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I can tell you is you still have some fixed cost expenses that you're going to have to pay. Out of what revenue? You didn't bring the revenue in. You can't use it on your payroll protection program except for your rent and utilities.
Yeah, think we've got a saying around here, hope is not a strategy. So I think having a plan is really great advice. Jay, if we've got practices that want to reach out to you, how can they get in touch with you?
They can go onto our website, and our website is www.shorr.solutions, SHORR, solutions plural because we have more than one, .com. Or you can send an email to info@shorrsolutions.com. It goes into our general mailbox, and I am most certainly able to get it. You can call me. I'm giving out my personal cell number to anybody that has questions. That's 561-289-4640. And I did post something over the weekend on LinkedIn for those practices, although we are a for-profit consulting company. However, for those practices who need help and guidance in applying for this PPP loan, if you hadn't already done so, I am personally offering my assistance and my guidance in helping you to do this for free. I'm not asking for any money. I'm offering to do it to any of the medical practices absolutely at no charge. There's come a time later on in life that my services in consulting will be for fees. But however, we all need to stick together, as Chris Cuomo says, as Americans. And then I can give you examples of what the Fox people say and all the other people. I don't want to politicize it. But we need to help one another. Together, forever, as one.
Jay, thanks so much. This has really been awesome and really some valuable insight. I really appreciate the time.
I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be part of it, Chuck, and thank you once again. I really appreciate the opportunity.